blow them out when the circumstances allow you to go ahead and utilize those plays. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. But when you talk about desperate teams looking to find a way to put points on the board, don't you think that it would be a wise move for them to try to get a little bit different instead of overly too predictable?
Well, of course, you always have to look, if you're the defense, you have to disguise the blitz. You can't just line up 9 in the box all the time and then expect for them not to know what the blitz is. It's different when you line up 7 guys in the box and you're backing off 2. You're backing off 3. You're giving the look like you're going to blitz, but the last second doesn't happen. So what does that do? That frees up defensive backs to cover those third and shorts, those second and shorts to prevent those first downs. Look, Sean McVay's going to have to get Aaron Donald on point tonight, along with the rest of that linebacking core, to shift, move defensively, just start being the disruptors of old. And I don't mean that old. We're talking early on in the season. They're winners of 3 in a row. Now, all of a sudden, they find themselves in a very competitive NFC West match, at least from a divisional standpoint, with the likes of the 49ers or the likes of the Seattle Seahawks, who are hot to trot right now with Russell Wilson. And that was where I kind of wanted to go into segue into this without going too much off the diving board. But I wanted to talk about how Russell Wilson quietly, assuredly, and from an execution standpoint, getting it done. He's a quiet MVP candidate that I think people are really missing right now. At the end of the day, when it's all said and done, does this boil down to the 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks to win this NFC West? Or somehow do you believe that the Rams will find a way to come back and maybe take a bite out of this and get back into this race? Because right now they're on the outside looking in.
Well, I'll tell you what, Rams have no chance. I'll just tell you that. So, but I want to pose a question to you, Rudy, okay? A year ago, the Rams had Ndamukong Suh on that defensive line, and he was more of he took a little bit of pressure off of Aaron Donald. So, and then you have Wade Phillips as well. So when you look at that defensive line, you had a very intimidating figure on that defensive line. So, to me, I think they're a dangerous defense, okay, but were they more dangerous a year ago? I say yes. Okay. Now, I want to allude back to what you said a moment ago, Rudy, and that's this. The Rams have no chance of winning this division. None. If they're lucky, they get a wild card berth, depending on how weak the rest of the conference is. But even if they get a wild card berth, I think they don't even get past their first game. I really don't. They're not as dangerous unless they can catch fire at the right time offensively and they start clicking with a quarterback who I consider, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say he's an average quarterback. That's the way he's playing now.
Well, I want to see how average or maybe not so average this Rams team is tonight. If they can find a way to disrupt, and I say disrupt, what I mean ultimately disrupt, close off passing lanes, close off running lanes, and keep Lamar Jackson in the pocket. Ndamukong Suh did absolutely everything right last season. There's some untimely penalties, but what linebacker doesn't make that mistake? What offensive guard or tackle doesn't make that mistake? What halfback doesn't? So without Suh, they don't have that crossfire blitz. They don't have the consistent pressure on many offensive lines this season. And it's kind of sad to know, and a side note, Suh's not doing any better, to be quite honest with you. I really heard a whole lot from him this season at all. He lined up well with guys like Aaron Donald. The interior lineman for this Rams system has changed a little bit because they don't have guys like Ndamukong Suh. So overall tonight, I look at the Rams being able to, with the right play execution, with the right play call, be able to pick up key first downs in third and maybe even fourth down situations. The problem is that you put in a backup quarterback in the place of Jared Goff, who has been playing absolutely subpar this year, in my opinion, and should not even be considered, and not even in the scope through a microglass at any point whatsoever, any type of MVP, unless he can represent that, show that, exhibit it, and execute under center. Is he going to be in that conversation? I don't see it. I don't see him bouncing back at all whatsoever. Do the Rams win tonight? And if so, how do they win? Do they win at the running game, the passing game, or is it a 50-50 split?
Yeah, let's go back to Ndamukong Suh, if you don't mind, Rudy. Okay. First of all, he was with the Rams. He wasn't the type of guy that was dependent upon. he was a piece of the puzzle. Where with Tampa, their defense is just horrible. And, of course, don't discount Wade Phillips either, who's one of the best coaches in the league, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So he wasn't expected to be a intricate part of the Rams, just a complimentary piece, or with the Buccaneers, this role will change. Remember, we both know this, and we've been around the NFL a long time. It's about the system and the coaching staff and the supporting cast that you have. If any of those three elements fail, you're in trouble, right? So I just want to make sure that the differences between one Rams team versus another Rams team is definitely evident upon what you're seeing last year versus this year. So to answer the other part of the question, I think you're right. Okay, Aaron Donald has definitely got to be disruptive to even give the Rams a puncher's chance, because is there any way to really contain Lamar Jackson? Probably not, but an intimidating presence that takes away his biggest strength, and that's a running game, is probably the one way to do it. You want to get Lamar Jackson to beat you out of the pocket and through the air. That's what you really need him to do. He beats you on the ground with his legs, you're at a major disadvantage.
Well, I think the disadvantage is a lack of play calling. I think it has everything to do with recognizing the talent, understanding the talent. What levels are they at right now? What levels can they exceed? Could they exceed their own expectations? Could they exceed your expectations? Right now, the Rams are just not creating the kind of formula that I see as a winning team tonight. I just don't. Why? Because the Ravens are just that much better. They're much better from quarterback play. Again, they're different. I respect that. But what I don't respect is the fact that you have this Rams team. Sean McVay almost went into a dumpster. He almost put a ladder up to the next to the dumpster and climbed in it because of his poor play calling, decision-making process. That game was more on him than probably anybody other than execution on the field. He can't be the wide receiver, quarterback, linebacker, or anything else. However, he can be the one to make the play calling to the skill set of the people that are actually on his roster. And sadly, I didn't see that happen. Yeah, no, okay, fine. So Jared Goff's contract is a little excessive, I think. Is he playing to his contract? No. Do you see at some point whatsoever in the offseason, by some chance, some act of wilderness, do you see them going after any quarterback? Because don't forget, they had Luis Perez, but that didn't happen. So that was very short-lived. They let him go. He got onto one other team, didn't quite work out. Do you see them maybe bringing him back, or maybe going after a free agent? There aren't many good backup quarterbacks into the offseason this year.
I actually see them bringing back Goff at least for one more year. I mean, unless you have a guy who's a real clear-cut replacement. I don't like drafting a quarterback that high in the first place, but the last thing you want to do is think you made a bad decision with the first pick of the overall draft. You really don't. So I see Goff coming back. And you already made my point for me. What veteran out there is able to go ahead and be able to take over that role? I mean, the one guy I think I'd like to see get a change of scenery, who's a much better quarterback than anybody's ever shown. Me personally, I think it would be Andy Dalton, and rescue him out of Cincinnati. But it's all about coaching is really what it is. And you have to be a smart quarterback, and you have to make the most of what your strengths are. But can you think of any other quarterbacks that the Rams could really logically bring in? Do you think that they would go out of their way and try to trade for a Matthew Stafford, even though that'll never happen? I don't see Goff taking a pay cut. I don't see that. I mean, even though everybody knows that NFL contracts are basically, one-year deals? So, well, I mean, and we all know that teams in L.A. like to make a big splash when they're going to make a trade, but they're running out of draft capital to do it.
Gabby, and the reason for that is because they spend so much on the quarterback and the offensive line. This team's going to have to reevaluate seriously into the offseason because of the deficiencies offensively, defensively. I mean, I don't know what Eric Dickerson thinks about this team so far, and I've been trying to get him on the show. I've had Jim Everett on my show, former Rams QB, but he's always busy. So maybe I can probably get somebody else in relation to that next season about what the offseason needs are. I guess the time will tell. This is Rudy Reyes, Scott Morganroth at Take No Punches. Throw us a follow. And when we say we don't take no punches, that's with the gloves off. But we take them when they're on. This is Rudy Reyes. Thanks for joining us in for a little bit longer, but I wanted to at least get Scott's take on this. Where do you see Lamar Jackson going right now? Is he going to throw for 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns? Where do you see Lamar Jackson in regards to his efficiency tonight against this Rams defense?
I see him throwing for 2 touchdowns and rushing for another one.
At least.
Yep,
At least.
At
least.
At least.
Yeah.
I actually see the Ravens winning this game 33-14.
I'm thinking maybe somewhere in a little bit larger number, and I think that it's going to be a little bit closer. So I'm going to say 33-21. That's an outlandish number.
33 part, so
I think the 21. I'm going to give Rams a little bit more edge than that.
All right, well, that's fine. I mean, but you better be writing these scores down, so when we talk about this at a later date, we'll see who gets bragging rights. And for all you individuals on Twitter, you can follow me at the @Tribune South. I also have a Facebook page. You can look for the South Florida Tribune on Facebook as well as my personal name, Scott Morgan, Motor City Badmouth. But, yeah, we got the 33 right, Rudy. The question really comes down to how close the game is. But I don't want to leave out the underlying factor is how efficient will Mark Ingram be, Rudy?
I think Mark Ingram may not be as efficient as he has been because this is still a very good defense. Make no mistake. I mean, and we're not Ram bashing by any means, but as far as pointing out the obvious in relation to where this Rams team is, I just don't know that they're going to get the kind of pressures against a very solid offensive line of Baltimore. In order to really make any massive difference. I don't think they end up touching Lamar Jackson. I don't think Lamar gets sacked at all tonight, to be perfectly honest with you. It's just not something that I'm really looking at. But I'll give the edge to Baltimore tonight. It may not look good for the AFC South in relation to where they're winning because, like I said, everybody should know this already. I'm a diehard Steelers fan, but at the same token, I'm also a player fan. So when I see good players doing great things on and off the field, I tip my hat. And right now, Lamar Jackson's on fire. And now that's all I got to say about that. Scott Morgan, Rudy Reyes. Throw me a follow, would you? At RudeDog Reyes. Throw us a follow. At Take No Punches. Go to the RudeDogShow.com. Check out a lot of great stuff. And, of course, go to Tribune South. Throw Tribune South a follow while you're at. It's just a click away. And, of course, never a step away. Speaking of step, we're going to have to step out on this one. We have our final scores, so we're going to have to see what happens, when, how, and why. This is Rudy Reyes and, of course, Scott Morganroth on at Take No Punches. And just a little, just a side note, Scott. Just a side note.
I'm sorry, Rudy. Let me throw one little piece of trivia for our fans out there, okay? Do you know what former Rams owner Carol Rosenblum has in common with both of these two cities?
No.
I believe he used to own the Baltimore Colts and the Los Angeles Rams.
Oh, well, there's a link to put in the chain gate. And just a side note, Robert Woods is on the field warming up. And so all indications are that he's going to play tonight. For those that are into fantasy, that's your fantasy tip. I think Robert Woods will end up playing. He's been gone for some off-field situations that he had to solve for. But I don't know if Robert Woods is going to be enough for this Rams team to actually win. But thanks for tuning in. Throw us a follow. This is Rudy Reyes, Scott Morganroth. Scott, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Trivia is good. And hopefully everybody will share this podcast.
All right. Well, meanwhile, Rudy, it's a pleasure always being on the air with you, and look forward to the next at Take No Punches as well. One thing about us is not only do we bring the energy, but we bring the information.
Ooh, the information age. Everybody loves that. Everybody loves that. Thank you very much. We'll see you guys soon. And stay tuned for the next episode of MotorMan RudeDog at Take No Punches.